Hi everyone, my name's Tom Rayner. I'm a Senior Fisheries Scientist at New South Wales DPR Fisheries. Today I thought I'd do a little video about how modern screens work and how they actually protect native fish. So what's actually going on at that interface between fish and pumps and channels. So what we have, a lot of pumps and irrigation channels are actually unscreened at the moment, or they have a large trash rack, and that's basically designed to keep logs and stuff out of the pumps. Now, the velocity of the water entering this can be anywhere up to about 3 meters per second. So that's pretty fast. Now, native fish in Australia aren't like some of the fish that we see overseas. Like salmon, we see them jumping up over waterfalls and getting caught by bears and all kinds of stuff. Native Australian fish are a bit more like, yeah, no mate, thanks heaps, but I'm just gonna chill here. So they're not able to deal with a capacity like this. They can't swim away from that if they're close to this intake. So what modern screens do is they basically reduce this velocity of the water entering the pump, but not the volume of water that is extracted. And the way that they do that is by basically increasing the surface area over which that water is entering that pipe. So they have the pipe coming up the bank like this, and this is your screen here. So this screen, this would be say a cone screen, that can be down to anywhere as low as 2 millimeter mesh. So the velocity actually coming in here is around 0.1 meters per second. Okay, so it's a lot less. So that means that the water coming through here is barely trickling, and leaves and stuff generally don't even stick onto this surface. If they do, screens can be fitted with a mechanical brush that rotates around the outside of the screen and brushes that material off. Now, when we talk about, let's talk about fish for a second. Now we've got all types of different species, and some can swim better than others, but generally speaking, we've got, I guess, 4 types of fish in each species. Okay, we've got adults, and they can generally swim pretty well, and they can swim much faster than 0.1 meters per second. So if they're coming near the screen, they can just sort of swim straight past it. We've got juvenile fish. Now they can swim quite well, but they're not as big and as strong as adults. So they can still swim away from that 0.1 meter per second. We've got larval fish. Okay, so these are just hatched out of their eggs, and they're swimming around in the water column, and they might be drifting down with the water down, say, a river channel, but they can still swim too. So what is happening is at a cone screen, like what I just had before, the area, because we've reduced that the velocity down to 0.1 meters per second, the actual volume of water, the area of water around that cone that's being influenced by the pump is a lot less than if we just have a pump coming straight into the water and it's sucking out, water from this whole area is over 0.1 meters per second. Okay, so this whole area here is sort of getting sucked in, and then right at the intake it might be 1 to say 3 meters per second. So we've reduced that area. So that's one way of protecting larval fish. In terms of eggs, okay, we don't have great data on eggs at the moment. So eggs are drifting down, and they're likely to, the area that they're being impacted on, they are going to get stuck on this. And unfortunately, those fish would be lost from the system. They'd be killed by that in that scenario. But because this same principle applies, we're getting proportionally less of those eggs are going to be impinged on our screens. And we have a lot of work going on in this space to answer some of those questions about larval fish and eggs. Okay, so we've got some work where we're taking eggs and we're putting them in experimental flumes. So we build an artificial channel, okay, like this, and then we pour water down it, and we build an offtake where we've got an actual screen, and we can change the way that the screen's oriented. We can change the velocity of water that's coming out of that screen. We can do all those things. And then what we do is we get a jar of eggs, and we pour them into the top end of this channel. And then what we do is on the outtake over here, we have some nets on the channel and also on the offtake, and we see how many, or if any eggs went through, how many went through here, what happened on the screen. So that's some work that's underway at the moment. The other thing that we're doing is we're doing some work on how fish actually interact with those flow velocities. So we have experimental flumes set up in the lab, and they look like basically a ring like this with a screen here and a screen here. Okay, and so you've got water getting pumped around like this, and then what we do is we put fish in here, and the water's coming in, and we can control exactly the velocity of that water, and we can video this, and we can say, okay, at what velocity are fish unable to keep swimming, and then they drift down and they become impinged on the screen down here. So those are all the sorts of things that we can do. And we take all this information. At the moment we're writing some national guidelines for Australia, which is basically a new best practice of how we actually design screens. What's the screen design got to be? How are they going to get manufactured? And all the other operating requirements that we need to know to actually effectively protect fish. So some of that's a work in progress, but basically what we're doing is by installing these modern screens is we're reducing a point of impact on native fish. There's already plenty of things that native fish have to deal with. This is one way that we're dealing with one of the impacts that the way that we use our rivers has on native fish. And the more of those that we can remove, the better, basically, and the more types of impacts that we can remove, the better it's going to be for fish. And that means better fishing, it means stronger regional communities through manufacturing, tourism, all those types of benefits that we all want to see. So anyway, I hope that helps explain a little bit about what's happening with how fish are actually interacting with screens and some of the work that we've got underway. And of course, we'll be publishing more of that as soon as it's available. All right, take care. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.